Thank you for tuning in. This is Matt Santos of the Mile High Show. You're listening to episode 162. This is my talk with three local artists. The three sitting down with me today are Jim Pyduck, Jonathan J.P. Perpich, and Leslie Earl Lyman. Leslie Earl is no stranger to these microphones. He's sitting in kind of as a co-host today. We recorded at the Prescott Center for the Arts in Prescott, Arizona. That is our main community theater right there in Prescott. Beautiful, beautiful theater on Marina. And the information on the theater can be found at pca-az.net. And Jim Pyduck is the director of their most recent production, Lost in Yonkers, a Pulitzer Prize winning play by Neil Simon. Great story, great cast, including JP, Jonathan Perpich. JP plays Uncle Louie in the show, one of the most colorful characters in the cast, and a good guy to talk with. I've been working with JP last couple of weeks on some side projects. First time I met him was about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and I'm glad I did. Look for a show. We talk about it a little bit in this podcast this week, but we've talked about it off mic as well. Pretty soon, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to sit down and do a full show just with JP because he has a fascinating story, a fascinating history, and a lot of fun tales. He dips his toe in it a little bit today, telling us just a little teaser of what we will hear on his solo podcast, but the main thrust of what we were talking about today was with Jim Pyduck. Wanted to sit down with him. I've been wanting to for a while. He's both a director and actor at the PCA, and his name keeps popping up on various projects over there, and in the course of my talking with other folks associated with the arts community in Prescott, his name keeps popping up, and I just haven't had a chance to sit down and talk with him, so I'm glad I did. Both JP and Les did a project with Jim and others about a year or so ago, American Buffalo, that Les provided the music on, and they've got some other projects coming up. So sit back and enjoy my talk with Jim Pyduck, Jonathan Perpich, and Leslie Earl Lyman talking about, among other things, Lost in Yonkers, which I saw a preview of the other night. It was a great production. It opens for the public tomorrow, which is whenever you're listening to this. It'll be January 25th, and will run through the weekend for the next couple of weeks. So it's a limited run, 2 weekends. Check it out. There's a couple of matinees mixed in there. Information on the play is right there in our show links. Just click on the PCA, Prescott Center for the Arts link right there in our show notes, as well as both Jim and JP's IMDb pages, but also online, pca-az.net. Again, pca-az.net is the web home for the Prescott Center of the Arts, and Lost in Yonkers is the production. So sit back and enjoy, please. Oh, also, milehighshow.com. Use that Amazon link there as a way to get what you need delivered to your home, and without any extra cost to you, support the show. We get a little kickback from Amazon, so please use that Amazon link at milehighshow.com and go to pca-az.net to pick up your tickets for Lost in Yonkers, featuring Jonathan Perpich and directed by Jim Pyduck. Enjoy the conversation. Take it away, Les. Introduce yourself. Tell us where we can find out about you, and plug any gigs you got coming up or any projects you're working on.
My name is Leslie Earl Lyman.
Not a serial killer.
Not a serial killer. If you really want some backstory on that, you can go back in the archives to the very first time that Matt and I sat down to talk, and he kept calling me James Earl Ray.
I called you every three-name person with the exception, I think, of Michael J. Fox.
Like the Earl just threw him off. He's like, my God. He didn't know what to do with that. I get like it's gotten
You were
better.
James Earl Jones.
You had to let him go first, didn't you?
But yeah, it's true. It's true. Anyway, I'm a singer-songwriter soldier for the scene. I have, gosh, man, like I played, like I did a show with you guys.
Yep. American Buffalo.
Last summer. Was it last summer? Was it last summer? I can't even remember. It's been so much between now and then. That was which was
fall,
a hoot.
think,
It was last fall. That was a hoot. My next gig, I will be playing at Stromboli's in Cottonwood, the big room, Stromboli's. I think my good friend Darren Mahoney's going to come play with me. But his life
play date.
Yeah, well, get him out of the house and get him out of Chino Valley, away from the bad influence of Matt.
He's my neighbor.
And I occasionally maybe more than occasionally co-host with him, the infamous Matt Santos, and he wanted me to come today for some ungodly reason, perhaps because he does not like you. I don't know.
And the yous are JP. Tell us about yourself.
I can confirm that, Les. I've spent enough time with Matt now knowing that to be true. I'm Jonathan Perpich. I go by JP, and I'm sitting here in this beautiful theater with Matt and a couple other fellows here, just to talk a little bit about this production we're doing right now, which is Lost in Yonkers by Neil Simon. And,
Pulitzer Prize winner, right?
Yeah, beautiful play.
91, something like that.
Yep.
I get to play the colorful character of Uncle Louie, and I'm also just another ne'er-do-well that Matt found on the street that needed to hold the mic. So here I am.
Now, I want to hear a little bit, and we'll get into it as we talk. I want to hear a little bit of your background, but not too much, because that's going to be a whole separate time. JP and I are going to sit down at some point and just go off on the wild world of
JP's story.
JP. Yeah, I did a little hunting around and could not find too many clips on YouTube. I'm looking for that last precinct, though. We were talking a couple days ago.
So when we talk today, which section would you like me to redact?
We could. It doesn't matter. There's no structure to this thing. But I do want to sit down with you and just go full bore and let it run and see where it takes us. Because just in our little interaction and about some of the projects you have since we've met in the last week or so, I can tell that's going to be a fascinating rabbit hole to fall down.
Yeah.
And we might even emerge from the other side. Who knows? I will say this: he makes a mean sandwich.
Ah, yes.
And to your left,
you made him a sandwich?
The man of the hour.
He's going to come live at your house now, right?
That's fine with me. I need the company.
Did he give you a cigar after?
Don't feed them.
Don't feed the strays.
All right. Oh. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I just had to put one of my cats down so Matt can come in and take the place. So.
Well, my name is Jim Pyduck, and I've been involved in theater my whole life, and I love it. And I'm directing this little thing here, Lost in Yonkers, and having a ball doing it. And just the having to put his cat down, I'm developing a business on my own that I just got together with a couple of other people, and what we do is we do you ever see the back of vans or the back of cars where they have the kids and the mom and the dad and the dog and the cats all holding hands? Well, we have a business where we remove, like if the cat dies, we remove that. If one of the kids die, we remove that. If one of the parents dies, we remove that. Without any, you can't even tell. So if you want people to know that somebody died in your family, they won't even know.
Oddly enough, I know a guy who will just remove the family members. He doesn't mess with the stickers.
We kind of had contact with them.
You scared me a little bit because when you started talking about when you see vans and trunks of cars and things, I've only seen them from the inside.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We work with them. They let us know when it's going to happen, and we can prepare to remove the cat or the dog or the person.
Now, Jim,
that's like I've heard a lot of creepy stuff. Just this year, but that is quite
just
frankly, just the look on your face. Well, yeah, we do this, and it's all la 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 la, and he's just very happy about it, and like he's talking about death and dismemberment.
I modeled my character after this.
Oh, shoot. We used to have a saying, don't do me a favor, don't do me no favors.
Yeah. How long you been in the area, Jim?
10 years, just about 10 years. I went through a terrible divorce in Bangor, Maine. That was one of my last stops. And I thought I was there for the rest of my life, but she backed out and didn't want to be married anymore. And I just got on the internet and threw things out and sent resumes, and they asked me to come here, Prescott Valley, to teach drama at Bradshaw Mountain High School. Turned out to be the best 5 years of my life.
Did you know much about the area before coming here?
Did not. I'll be honest with you. This is dead honest. I had in my mind that when I was teaching high school, some of the kids would be coming to school on horses. It was Arizona.
No, that's Chino Valley, not Prescott Valley.
Well, maybe they do it there. You know what I'm saying? But people from the East, I'm from the East Coast. I'm from New York, Philadelphia. And
I never would have guessed from that voice.
We have a whole different. We're in the Super Bowl, by the way. They have a whole different idea of what it's like. We have no idea what it's like. Except movies.
I worked for the state for a while here in Arizona, and I would interact with people coming in from a lot of tourists. I worked with ADOT for the motor vehicle department for a while, and you'd have these people coming in. For some reason, Germany was huge. You would get these influxes of German tourists who would want to come to. They would rent Harleys and ride Route 66.
Wow.
And the Grand Canyon, and they would just tell you, "We want to see cowboys. We want to see cowboys."
Yeah.
And that fascination with the Western and the Wild West culture.
Yeah.
They're in Dallas, by the way.
And it's here. It's here. We have it here too.
Oh yeah.
Well, for a little while longer, it's like for a little while longer.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, this is gonna everything up here it's gonna look like Mesa in about 15 years.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your impressions with and your experiences with Bradshaw at their drama department, because I've talked with some of the people there. Jantina Russell, Cynthia Sobo, who are involved in that program still, and some of the others. I was very impressed with my little bit of interaction with them, because it's a pretty strong program over there.
Yeah.
What kind of things 10 years ago, what was it like?
Well, 10 years ago when I got there, I was really fortunate because they said to me that the principal came up to me and he said, figure it out, or the superintendent said, do what you want to do. And so I figured out my classes. I had 5 classes a day, 35 kids, in each class, and had 2 major shows, one in the spring and one in the fall. And but what I decided to do was this. I have to reflect who I am, and I could not do things like High School Musical. Not that there's anything wrong with it. But I just did all the classics. I brought in, The Man Who Came to Dinner, Arsenic and Old Lace, You Can't Take It With You, all the stuff from the 40s.
Out of the Frying Pan.
You Can't Take It With You?
Yeah.
Dude, that is one of my favorite Jimmy Stewart movies.
And the kids loved it.
It's great.
They loved it because they didn't
most
have any
most of them, it's
exposure.
brand new for them.
Yeah. And coming from the real world, like I worked in New York City for a long time as an actor. And, struggled like everybody else. But I worked as an actor for 16 years. So they knew that.
Yeah.
That I had cred to them. You know what I mean? So they immediately went with me. And the first thing I did was Our Town. And I went from there,
Well done. Yeah.
I believe, and I know very little about the theater in general, and specifically musical theater. But
I'm not interested in that.
One of the things that I've come to learn is that musical theater for me is a lot like Chinese food. There's nothing better than great musical theater. There's nothing worse than bad musical theater.
I guess you're right.
And when you've had bad Chinese food, it could wreck your weekend.
Yeah. I got to say, I'm a little prejudiced. I want to get my boy in here, but I'm a little prejudiced with musical theater, and they call it, it has nothing to do with sexuality, but they call it straight theater.
Yeah.
Where, it's what we're doing here pretty much. It's
Dramatic.
a little bit funny, dramatic or whatever, but to me, that's theater. That's blood and guts theater.
Yeah.
Man, what kind of time do we live in where you had to preface straight theater with this is not about that? I mean, what the heck, man?
I know. Well, it's a fact.
For years, it was kind of the same thing. There was journalism, and then there was television journalism.
Yeah.
There was that same
media,
stigma. Yeah,
and,
exactly.
all that stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But to see the program here at Prescott Center for the Arts, the level of talent, the level of productions. The last time I was in here previous to Monday night for the media night here for Lost in Yonkers was a couple months back for Fiddler on the Roof. One of my all-time favorite productions. The story, the play itself, I've seen it. It was one of the first movies I remember seeing that wasn't like a Disney movie. It was like the first adult movie.
And what did you think of the production
They
here?
did great.
Yeah,
it was fantastic.
I was actually the constable in that.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Small part.
Tradition.
I love the
I just
story.
locked everybody up.
Yeah, I love the not everybody. You got JP still running around wild. But the level of talent, the level of experience here in our area really surprised me.
Totally agree with you.
Because, again, not being immersed in the theater scene, not knowing all the players, but to walk in and see just the level of stuff they're doing here is really nice. And I think there's a large section of our population that knows that and that's aware of it, but there's a whole nother group of folks in this Quad Cinco City area, whatever you want to call it, that really have no idea what happens within these walls here at the building.
I totally agree with you, yeah.
Now, talk a little bit about your history on with acting in general. You said you were working actor for...
Well, it's... there's a guy next to me, his name's JP, and he's
I'm just going to go make Les a sandwich.
He's going to make us some lemonade. He said, "Well, I'll go from here." I went to an all boys Catholic high school, and we had no theater department, so it wasn't even an option. But we did have to give a speech. You had to give a speech in front of the class, and I swear to you, this is the truth. I was making plans to run away from home before I would get in front of that class and give a speech.
Yeah.
And it turns out I spent my whole life in theater. I had no idea. We don't know, what's going to happen in our lives. And I totally, every time I have two young boys who I love, who I'm directing in this play, and I talk to them all the time. If you get bad vibes from people, bad feedback, don't do that. Don't be an actor. It's not a real job. Get a steady job. Follow your heart. And I did it my whole life, and I'm an old man now, and I'm a happy old man because I did that.
And that's what I was getting at, because the both of you have had and have careers in the arts, which a lot of people don't do. A lot of people like myself and a lot of the musicians and artists in our area here, because we have a thriving artist community, it's not what they have their jobs and then they have their art. Now, both of you, JP and Jim, you guys have been able to make a living also with your art. What were some of the first...
Not here.
Well, no.
I was going to jump in with that.
Just
really,
in general,
I'm going to be an actor.
Yeah.
I'm going to be an actor if you guys are making a living.
What motivated you with your oral presentation in high school? Kind of, was that like a jumping off point for you?
I don't think I did it. I think I just was sick that day or something. I just was petrified. It wasn't an option. It wasn't something that I thought about. Like some kids say, "Ooh, I want to be a movie star. I want to be an actor." I just never thought that, and it turned out to be a guy came up to me in this dead end job that I had. I call it the land of the dead, with cubicles and stuff like that. And he said, "I'm going to go to an acting class." This was 1973. Do you want to come with me? I said, "No way, man." And he said, "Well, I'll buy beers after." And I said, "Okay,
sign me up." Yeah,
and that was it.
What about you, JP? Was it?
Well, Jim just told my story. It's weird.
You were buying kids beer? What?
Yeah.
And making them sandwiches.
I grew up a terribly introverted kid. Just absolutely tremendous social anxiety. Didn't feel comfortable around people. And I ended up in a speech class in 9th grade. I failed that class because I absolutely refused to get up and give a speech. And then, in that day, that was the end of what we called junior high school.
Yeah.
And so I was going on to high school, 10th grade, and somebody told me about this class. It said, Mick class is real easy. All the guy does is play chess all day long.
Yeah.
So I got into this class. The first thing I wanted us to do is get up on stage and do an improv. It was a drama class. And I got the hell out of there. And then I kind of whooshed around a little bit in what they call an office training class where you send passes out. And it didn't work out. And the only place left to go back to was that class. So I went back in. I sucked it up. I did my first improv. I did a thing, the Jackie Gleason hobo thing. And something changed. I mean, something completely changed in my life. And, I fell in love with theater. I got the bug, as they call it. And, ended up going to UCLA, studying theater there and film, and got an agent and had a pretty good run in the 80s. I did about 30 shows.
What was your first paying gig?
Let's see. I'll tell you about my first auditions first.
Yeah, go.
2 weeks into school, one of my instructors, a professor, came to me and he said, "There's a guy looking for, for somebody, a young actor," and he came to me and wondered if I had any students, and I want you to send you out to this audition. And so I didn't have anything professionally prepared, right? So I had a handwritten resume on lined paper and literally a Polaroid photograph that somebody took that morning. And I walked into this office, and they brought me in and sat down across the desk from this guy, and turned out his name was George Lucas, and he was auditioning for Star Wars, the original Star Wars. And I had never auditioned professionally before. I had no idea what I was doing. But he thought I was so cute that he sent me over to Brian De Palma, who was auditioning for, the Stephen King piece. And I auditioned for him and didn't get either role, but that's how I sort of began. The first paying gig, when I got my SAG card, I actually was on, my first job was The Incredible Hulk. I was just telling one of the kids in the show, I said, I remember my first line, "Don't take my car."
Great Bill Bixby.
Yeah.
Well, no, he was talking to Lou. You were talking to Lou, and not Bill. It was like, Lou, don't throw down.
It was actually Bill Bixby.
Was it
right?
Bill?
Yeah, he ran out and he stole my car.
Oh, Bill stole your car?
As he was turning into the Hulk.
Okay.
But I was also thinking about, I talked about modeling, my character. This performance I'm doing in this show is really kind of an homage to my Uncle Nick, my brother's Uncle Nick, who was rumored to have been connected with the mob.
Yeah.
He spent quite a bit of time in New York, and he was just a character. He was so funny. I remember I was working on a home in Portland, Oregon, and he was up there for some reason. I think he lived there for a little bit. And he came over and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, we're doing some fix-up on the home." He goes, "I got some friends that can make this an empty lot." So, I love my Uncle Nick. And so a lot of the stuff I do as this character is an honor.
Could I just jump in here with
Sure,
that?
man.
I'm the director of this project that he's talking about. And I just thought about this on the way over. JP and I have become really close friends in the past couple of years. We're like brothers, and we worked on American Buffalo together, which was a huge
Yeah, you guys
project.
were good in that.
It was pretty amazing, yeah.
It was a treat.
But I want to just say that what I was thinking about on the way over here was the job that you're doing with Uncle Louie is just, it's, as an actor watching another actor, I'm a director also, but I'm an actor also, and I'm watching you up there. It's just a joy because you just keep finding things, and it's so real. You know what I mean? It just is, and it's I don't know. I run out of superlatives,
Well,
But
what I can tell you from watching you guys work is, every night was like, well, I want to. Well, what about this? We'll try this. We'll try that. And it was it really wasn't the same show. It was
Sort of like jazz.
Story.
Yeah.
It was the same story, but you're like, well, I'm going to try a little bit of this. There was the whole the mirror thing where you're adjusting yourself. and people would come in and they would go, "Where do you think the best seat in the house was?" I go, "Right there by the mirror." It is invariably some woman, right?
Getting my boys in line.
But it was really.
I'm going to take that as a heck of a compliment, Les, because for me, I got to be honest with you, Jim and I have talked about this. That was as close to a spiritual theatrical experience that I've ever had. It was it was my favorite theatrical experience ever. It was incredible.
And it's amazing how we don't know, in this journey that we're on, like you and myself too, with not wanting to get on stage to give a speech. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then it turns out, in spite of us, the universe seeks order in our lives. That we both here we are sitting next to each other.
Absolutely.
At this point in our lives, after a career, both of us in show business and theater.
Yeah. Yeah. Back to American Buffalo, with Jim and Paul and and Ryan, we had a beautiful cast, and Paul, guided us with a really loving hand. But we had things like they were doing the roof. They were fixing the
Oh my God!
frickin' roof during that production, and we couldn't do anything about it. Robin worked her butt off. Robin is our executive director here, trying to figure out how to solve that problem, and there was not a solution. So at least 4 or 5 shows, we're doing the show, and they're banging on the roof.
Yep.
And it became kind of fun. I kept getting excited about hearing them bang up there, so that we could deal with it.
And we can't use the language that we used in the play here on our podcast, but it was, we would develop this thing. I would say, well, if you pay the guys, they wouldn't be banging up there. It's in the middle of the,
we had the freedom right in the middle of nowhere. Is there a marching band up there or what?
And it's really, and it's in that room, it's this little room, and it's really close and it's really intimate. And, and there's this thing, it's almost like having a theater in your living room.
Yeah.
I mean, people
have said that.
It was really super intimate, and it was probably one of the funner things I think I've done artistically here.
Nice to hear.
Well, it was just it was really a nice introduction of what people were doing around here. I knew Paul already. Paul, dude, you have to get involved in this. I don't think I want.
Let me just get to. I want to just talk about what you mentioned about the Quad City area and the talent here, and I totally agree with you that there, whether it's like people like us who like me who is retired here now, but he's still working here, and there are other people. But I talked to a guy, and he said, there's a potential of this area if we had some funding to do a Tanglewood thing, where the summertime.
Explain Tanglewood.
It's the thing in the East Coast where people from the cities like New York City and Connecticut, they go to this place and they have all this art that goes on, sort of in the woods and the more bucolic kind of atmosphere. But we have what we have here, and if we could have some funding, we could have the people from Phoenix and from New Mexico, from Colorado, who want to get away, especially Phoenix. They want to get away from the heat. They call them snowbirds on the East Coast. That they come up here, and this thing is packed. We have a summer rep, and JP did it, where it's sold out every night. You know what I mean? Because people come up from. But I'm just saying, it's kind of this pie in the sky thing that if we had funding, we have the talent to mount something like that.
There's always been a lot of potential.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this quick story about when I came. You were talking to Jim about what brought him here. I was living with a woman at the time, and we had we were living in a motorhome. I'd been in a motorhome for nearly, at that time, I think it was 3.5 years. And we were in a lot in Del Mar, California, and the races were coming in, so we had to move. And I asked her, where you want to move? And she said, can we go? My kids are in Arizona. Can we go? I said, absolutely not. I am not living in the desert, And I was one of those guys who assumed the entire state was sand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so she said, no, we got some friends up there in this beautiful place called Prescott Valley. And so I called one of the temp agencies up here. And I said, I just want to find out if there might be some employment if we do choose to move up into that area. Yeah. And she said, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm an actor, I'm a writer, I'm a director, I'm a videographer, I'm an editor. I'm a production artist, I'm a teacher. And, I gave them the list of all the different things that I had skills at. And she takes a breath and looks like she's, it seems like she's looking through some paper. And she goes, nope, nothing for you.
Well, you just made it sound like you couldn't hold a job.
Exactly, pretty much, but that was true. So,
ask Matt to give you his resume.
I intended. So anyway, we took a flyer and we ended up coming up here, and I had no idea that there was this much culture up here. Found out there were 33 art galleries in this little town. I think it was about 35,000 people when we moved up here. And then the theater. Right away I got involved in the theater and with a company called the Arizona Classical Theater, and then here. And on top of that, some of you listeners may know that I'm involved in the recovery community. And I had no idea that this was the recovery capital of the world. Yeah. And I ended up finding employment in the treatment industry.
The thing is about this area, and I keep telling people, is that there's nothing that's built. There's not that, like a lot of places you'll go where there's a big arts community. Everything's this monolith of and they all sort of own everything. And so if you want to get involved in it or like have a better idea to do something, the first thing you have to do is deal with the whatever society, the jazz society, the blues society, the theater society, or something like that. And so you have to sort of like go through that. But here, if you want to build something, there's no one to tell you no. You
That's
just
right.
go over here. Well, this looks like a nice spot.
Yep.
I think I'll do this. I want to make. And
Mm-hmm.
if it makes you happy, there's no one like you're not really competing with anybody as of yet.
Yeah.
But and I found that to be This is why you guys come here. You have all this experience, and then you can build stuff.
Sure.
You can be part of.
There's a place in Prescott Valley that JP and I work there through JP called Lark Productions, L-A-A, two A's.
Right.
And it's sort of, I hate to say it, but a mom and pop thing.
Right.
And they do Shakespeare.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
and
how
it's
cool
like they
is
just
that?
do it.
How cool is that? There isn't this thing where you have to, like you were talking about doing funding. Well, when you do things small, right, you don't have to please
That's true. That's true.
the
You're right.
Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You don't have to please like whoever's funding,
Absolutely.
like whoever's funding like PBS or whatever. You can do what you want.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about that money thing. And if there's no one to come in and as frequently happens in an art community, like if they can't, they may not be able to, have their own creativity, but they'll come in and throw money at it and they'll own it, And so this is why the art scene is so cool here and not cool at the same time because there's no money.
Right.
But
Right.
B, there's no one to tell you.
But I
no.
like listening to you because that's the pureness of it, the purity of what art is. You know
Right,
what I mean? It has nothing to do with money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That just doesn't. But it can't survive without it.
But you have to get paid, So I mean, this goes back to the Renaissance, where you have to have someone that someone to fund you so you can do your art.
Sure.
Well, people are self-funding here. They get they get a job and then they do stuff in their spare time, and you guys provide everybody up here. Oh, there goes my phone. Yay, that's cool. But you guys provide these people with an outlet for stuff. There are people I know, I've known them for years, man. I never see them happier when they're here. And they're taking part in making this thing happen.
If we're using our creativity, we are happy people.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is.
Speaking of funding, all you artists out there, you can go to milehighshow.com and use that Amazon link to buy all your supplies. Okay, commercial over.
Beautiful. I like it. That's a good commercial.
That's how we fund. Now, for both of you, Jim and JP, you have both television, movie, and stage credits. Talk a little bit about the difference between what attracts you to each of those mediums as far as plying your craft.
Well, I'll just go first because as I said, I lived in New York City in Manhattan for 16 years and made a living. But my primary thing has always been theater.
Yeah.
And even in New York City, especially, I guess, in New York City, it's the least remunerative of any of the arts. So I had to do television commercials, which I'm a avowed socialist, and I had to do these corporate commercials to make money.
Give us an example of one. Like what? What were you shilling?
One of them was stuff called Dimetap, cold medicine.
Dimetap!
And there was a little kid said, "Take 2 of these and call me in the morning." And he had 2 little cookies.
What an actor!
Dad.
I thought I was going to say that's some great acting. You played a child.
Oh, no.
No. Now you've also have some in your IMDb page. Did I say that? I always get those letters flip flopped.
The oldest website on the net, on the internet.
See no evil, hear no evil.
Yes. Yeah.
What was that experience like?
I played a sleazy businessman in a broken down motel in New Jersey, right across the bridge.
That was the Wilder Pryor.
But I got to say, Arthur Hiller directed that, and he directed a few of the Silver Streak and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was Gene Wilder and
Richard Pryor.
Yeah. And I remember, doing we had to wait all day long, and I was supposed to be this businessman in here with an 18-year-old girl, younger than 18 actually, And so they come knocking on the doors of all the
true
motel
life,
rooms.
then. I'm just
right.
Yeah.
They come knocking on all the doors, and they knock on our door, and I come out in my underwear with this young girl. And I say,
YouTube,
she said she
here
was
I come.
18, you know. And so what I did was that the girl was waiting for me. She was this young actress who had no, I said, I want to give her something to do, so do me a favor. I said, when I say that, whack me in the stomach. You know what I mean? Give me an elbow in the stomach. And she did. So Arthur Hiller's directing it, and we get to the scene, we do it, she pops me, and he goes, I don't know, that's a little bit much for me for that scene. Could you just cut that part out? I said, sure. So we did it again. We just did it without the thing.
Yeah.
And he came up to me and he said, your way's better. Do it that way.
Nice.
I went, wow, man, what a cool guy. You know?
Yeah.
Now you had mentioned going to the classics in your drama classes.
Yes.
You were in. I wrote it down. I don't want to. Warren Beatty, Annette Bening.
Yes.
Love Affair or Fair to Remember?
Falling in Love? No.
Was it Love Affair?
Love Affair, yeah.
It was a remake of An Affair to Remember.
Correct.
Which is Cary Grant, right?
Yep. And meet me on the
Which has
Empire
been-
State Building at such and such a time, which was in Sleepless in
Exactly.
Seattle.
Yeah.
And
one of the classic love stories ever.
Yeah.
What was the experience working on that?
I got to tell
remake?
you, I was the hotel captain. And all I had to do was have this thing. There was this. Alfred Hitchcock calls it the MacGuffin.
What does that pay? Just curious. Like, is that extra? Because you're an extra,
I'll
right?
tell you. If you are just an extra, it's like the lowest pay. So I don't know what it is now, but then it was like about $120. You know what I mean? If you said one word, it was $750.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So they're always trying to not get you to say anything, so they can save that whatever it was.
Which is a difficult task
Warren
with
Beatty,
Jim.
I got to tell you, I had nothing going on.
I was talking to, I don't know if it was you or man, it says, I don't know why you want me here with Jim because no one else is going to get to say anything.
I know. This sounds like
all right.
but I've been told that I could talk the balls off a pool table.
My goal for this podcast is for the listener to kind of feel like they just kind of sat down next to you at a diner or on the bar and was just over here in the conversation.
The current record for hogging the mic is what? Is it 54 minutes?
No, it was a 54-minute podcast and Les had 38 minutes of it.
So like that's 38 minutes.
No, go ahead.
I've been timing. He's got 32, so I think he's going to beat this. So.
But it's all like cliffhanger stuff.
And the great Gary Shandling was in that.
Yeah,
you were going to say something about Warren Beatty, and then
I showed up.
Pass it over to JP.
Yeah, I was just the bell captain, and I had a little scene with him, And I walked in, and he came up to me, and he goes, "Hi, I'm Warren Beatty," and I said, "Hi, I'm Jim Pyduck." And the thing that impressed me was, he's just I just love him, But he said, how about if Jim does this? Jim, is it okay if we do this? Jim, okay. He must have said my name 15, 20 times that day. And I was so impressed with that. You know what I mean? Because I was just this like a little extra kind of guy,
Day player.
And it didn't matter to him. It was a job. It was a piece of work that he was doing, and it all mattered,
Nice.
Which I respected. And I still do,
He doesn't get enough. I don't think he doesn't get enough credit for what he does.
I totally agree.
One of my favorite movies is Splendor in the Grass because anything with Natalie in it is like anything with Natalie in it is good.
Yeah.
But that whole movie is just this whole exercise in being that character and not overacting. Because and not saying too much and just sort of being that guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who's not what his dad wants him to be, and all this other stuff, and the tragedy of their high school years. And he's really good.
Really
in
good.
That.
Yep.
He's really
Yep.
good in that.
Yep.
And people just go Warren Beatty and they kind of everybody remembers Hairspray, right? That's what he gets. That's what or Dick Tracy, which is another
shampoo. You mean? Yeah, shampoo. Yeah,
Hairspray was Waters.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Although that would have been awesome.
Yeah, really.
Warren Beatty.
And he'd
and
probably be up
Divine.
for it too.
Talk a little bit about your television, and did you have much on a silver screen or mainly television?
I've forgotten how to talk now. It's, no.
You
Trust
breathe
me.
out and
Just move your lips and I'll talk.
Okay. We've been doing that for 33 minutes.
Charlie McCarthy style. You're
God we love each other.
You're going to get your whole show, JP.
I don't.
Just me and you and
a sandwich.
And a sandwich.
Says that to everybody, man.
Sounds good to me, brother. What was the question?
No, I just want to hear some more. Other than the Incredible Hulk and getting your car swiped by Bill Bixby.
Yeah.
What?
Oh,
Some of your experiences on screen.
Dolly Parton. Tell about Dolly Parton. I want to hear that one.
that goes in the other show.
All right.
That should be a video show.
Yeah.
With Dolly
It's
Parton.
one of his girlfriends.
Yeah, no, I've probably my favorite experience was working on Golden Girls. I was just telling Duncan, one of the younger actors, and these women cared so much about their craft. I had just done another show the week before, and it was about a bunch of young girls. I'll hold the name of the show, but they were like entitled and didn't care much about the craft, and don't make me say these words. And I get on the set with these women, and we did the read-through, and immediately said, we're going to take about a 2-hour break because we need to rewrite this thing. It's not there yet. And they cared so much about it, and they were all so loving and kind, and so that experience was remarkable. I had that series, the Stephen Cannell series. You're talking about, another parallel experience. It's weird. One of my roles.
Stephen Cannell? Which one?
The first time I worked with him, Cannell, was actually, I believe it's Cannell. So Stephen Cannell. The first one that I worked.
Stefan.
What's that?
I think it's Stefan.
Isn't there a
Cannell.
J in there?
Sorry.
Let's see how far we can derail JP's story.
It was Stephen. I know that much.
Smacking noise backstage.
There's a show called Riptide with Perry King, and I forget the other actor's name. And I had played a character where one of my lines was literally, I didn't know she was only 17.
Oh, my God.
I'm telling you.
It wasn't actually in the script. It was just some hidden camera footage in the back.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it. I just love it. I really do.
Saying it to a police officer and they caught it on
trope,
tape.
isn't it? That whole. It's
amazing.
almost a trope. I had no idea she was.
No.
She told me she was 18. She told me she was 18, but she wasn't.
So, I did, unlike Jim, I didn't get a chance to do any feature work. I came close a couple of times. I auditioned for Ron Howard for a film called Gung Ho, and
Nice.
it was between me and John Turturro, and Turturro had just come from New York, and he ended up having a hell of a career. Great actor.
Michael Keaton, right?
Keaton,
Well,
yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
I want to drop back a little bit. I'm sorry. The role that you auditioned for Lucas, what was the role?
It's R2D2, right?
No, it was the Mark Hamill role.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it was Luke Skywalker. Yeah.
Now, my appreciation, or should I say lack thereof, of the Star Wars franchise has been well documented on this podcast.
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
I don't either.
But of all the characters, one of the reasons I just don't get it is Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
I just didn't get. Every time he was on screen, I was like, yuck, get this guy up. I will go on record right now saying that I think it would have been a much better movie had you gotten the role.
Well, bless your kind soul, sir, but it didn't work
Trying
out
to get
that
another
way.
sandwich.
Yeah, another.
Yeah, so I was lucky. Literally, not many people get to have a decade-long career of doing the shows that I got to do, and having a lead in a series. That show, the appearance on Riptide, kind of laid the groundwork for me doing, my biggest role, which was the starring role in a series that lasted 13 episodes. That was a Stephen J. Cannell show, and it was called The Last Precinct, and that was a heck of a lot of fun. But I was, I'll tell you the truth, man, I was deep in my addiction at that point, and I was not a very dependable person, and most of the actors, I think, were misbehaving at that time. And
What year are we talking?
1986. It was the '86 Super Bowl.
Yeah.
We had NBC behind us, and this was going to be the life changing, event for me. And
your off-camera experiences, again, a whole nother podcast we'll get into, was not unique to that time frame. I
Right.
mean, that was
No,
that
no,
was
no.
the height
Pretty common, yeah.
of stick it up your nose.
You try to tell people, man, what it was like, and
Yeah.
like people don't. They don't. You had to have been there.
Yeah.
You know, like you had to be in high school in 1979 or something
Yeah.
like in this. Like,
Yeah.
or you had to be. You had to be like we're like in. I mean, it really got out of control in the early, and people didn't. People don't even understand that.
It's
like,
that big
I used to
lie,
get
the big
tipped.
cocaine lie.
Yeah.
It makes you better, it makes you
the band
smarter.
I was playing in. Like,
We sure
in the
thought so.
70s, we
Yeah.
used to get tipped in we used to get tipped in white powder.
Sure.
It was,
Oh, yeah.
you
No,
you
no,
get
no.
money, like they just like here, this is good for you.
Yeah, the 80s. The 80s was a great decade. I don't remember at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You were,
And unfortunately, I had a camera around my neck the whole time, so I have a whole boxes full of negatives going, this looks like fun. What was this? I don't know. I'm not in any
Did
of
I
them.
do this?
I wasn't in any of them, but it was like, when were we in Mexico? That would have been fun. Well, don't you
laugh
remember?
about
Don't
it
you
now, but,
remember
you know.
that
Well,
month?
well, see, that's what adventure is.
Sure.
That's what adventure
Sure.
is like
Yeah.
it's people being uncomfortable thousands of miles away while you read about it in your living room chair.
Yeah.
You know?
And most of our life is in hindsight.
Yeah, and
you know
it's
what I mean?
funny
It just
now.
is.
It's funny now, but
You know,
at
we
the
look back.
time,
Especially the older you get.
At the time,
Yeah. Yeah.
like you're just kind of like you're like, how did I live?
Yeah.
How did I live through that? There's, there's a what is it? Like everybody talks about how youth is wasted on the young, but no one talks about how like youth almost kills the young.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
And like a lot of people, I mean, for every one of us that's still here, right,
Yeah.
man? Like how many people do you know that didn't quite make it or
Yeah.
like, permanently scarred or something?
Actually, a lot of people literally ask me that question, Les. How do you live? The stuff that I used to do, and it was pretty darn close to,
You
me
mean at
not
the
being
time
here
they would
for
ask
long.
you that?
Yeah,
How do you-
seriously. Some of my drinking buddies, you're in trouble
Yeah.
when they call you the late tent. Right? Like, we'd be hanging out or camping with guys, JP's in the late tent. Meaning that obviously I was the last guy to go to sleep and the last guy to leave the party. And
Let's got to get up.
yeah.
Frequently the first, it's frequently the first guy to get up. Because like,
I
Is there
spent
anything left?
Or,
I
or
spent a
never
good-
slept at all. So.
I spent a good chunk of the 80s photographing comics in San Francisco and
boy.
a lot of bands,
Yeah.
traveling bands and bigger bands. And I knew it was you've kind of hit your limit when a band or a roadie or a comic goes, dude, you're doing way too much.
Yeah, right?
You need to slow down.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Now, that's when you know.
understand.
Feel great. That's when you know you've hit bad when a roadie goes, dude, you're out of control.
Right.
Oh, yeah. And then you have the mantra. My mantra was, you don't understand, leave me alone.
and the thing is that like it's genetics and good luck, man.
Yeah, that's right. Good luck.
But there's still people like my biggest example would probably be the bass player from Double Trouble. He's got Parkinson's. He can just barely play bass,
Yeah.
and that is like a huge as all all of us age out on the back end of that, man. Parkinson's and stuff like it. It's kind of caused by like a serotonin and dopamine imbalance, which is basically what
Neil Diamond just said he has it.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, and that but these guys are getting it young,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
getting it young, like late 40s and stuff.
Well, that's the young heart attacks. You know what they
yeah.
are. They're always powder induced. Not always, but
that living off of McDonald's, man.
Well, let's bring it back to 2018. First off, pca-az.net is the web home for the Prescott Center for the Arts.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of process, Jim, brought you to Lost in Yonkers, which is kind of in a little bit why we're here, other than just hearing stories. But were you involved in the choosing of it, or was it set and then you were brought on as the director? What's the process?
the latter.
to get
The latter. Yeah. I mean, I wish I could say that I've wanted to direct this my whole life and all that kind of stuff, but they needed a director to do it, and I said I'd do it, and I'm so happy because this is to me a real mature Neil Simon. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's not just the joke factory. You know what I mean?
I had forgot how serious it got until Monday
Wow.
night. I haven't seen the film
Wow.
in a lot of years,
Yeah.
but I had forgot how. I knew there were jokes in it. I knew there were laughs in it.
Yeah.
You know, Richard Dreyfuss is stuck in my mind as the character that stuck to me.
Kevin Spacey, by the way, played him on Broadway.
Right.
Yeah.
I forgot how deep it got and
Oh,
how,
my God.
how personal it got.
The other
Especially
night, you
Belle's
were here.
character.
Yeah, we had a press night where we had an invited audience for a dress rehearsal. And I was telling these guys last night, we had another rehearsal, that by that scene with Mama and Bella,
Yes.
where Bella confesses to what she did when she was young, I was in the back, and I'm the director, I'm watching the audience, and they were enraptured.
Yes.
You could not hear a breath at that point, you know, which is pretty big for a theater. You know, because people are coughing or, you know,
Yeah.
talking to each other. This was not... It
Trying to
was
hide their phones.
Pretty, yeah. I had to kick Jody out for that one.
Well, you know, that's it, but it was. That's why I like that particular Neil Simon play, movie, whatever. It's just, it's not happy. It's life. You know,
Life is right.
They're not caricatures. You know what I mean? You know,
Yeah,
you
not
have
one-dimensional.
They're
Yeah.
not one-dimensional. I mean, like, you know, a lot of the people of the grandma's generation, like they had to be like that to
Yeah.
live. And then, you know, all her kids are kind of like people. You know, they're not perfect. You know, and they all got like scarred by bad parenting, because we all do. You know,
Yeah.
because kids don't come with a manual.
Now, I was snapping some pictures the other night that are on the
Saw them, beautiful.
milehighshow.com.
Yep.
One of the things after going through, you know, when I got home that night and going through, it didn't click until I was seeing them frozen, you know, watching
Yeah.
those still images, were the levels that JP that you brought to your character as Louis, just in your interactions with the kids,
Yep.
when you would draw them to you, when you were, you know, giving the boys hugs, and you definitely brought a deeper layer than what I've seen in like roles. What is that something that you were consciously trying to do? Is that was just something that was coming to you as you were preparing for the role?
Well, thank you for the compliment. First of all, it's Neil Simon.
Yeah.
You know, the writing is remarkable. And lest we somehow infer that this is or imply that this is a dirge, it's still a very funny
Yes.
and, you know, delightful show.
sure,
There's
yeah.
just a lot of humor and a lot of laughs and a lot of love involved in this. But like I
more.
said, it's got this depth to it. I was just trying to commit to the character,
Yeah.
and the character, I think, that I found is absolutely in love with these boys, and they've made it easy for me to find love with them. You know,
Yeah, and there's the thing about life reflecting art. That's a cliche they use. And I watched this guy, JP, sitting next to me. You know, his character Louis is sort of mentoring these kids.
Yeah.
And then he finds out that maybe they want to be like him, and he decides to like turn
Yeah.
on them because he doesn't want them to do that. But as an actor, JP is doing that, you know, when we're not on stage or you know, in character, I should say. He's mentoring these young boys about acting, which I thought was such a beautiful thing to
Yeah.
watch. You know, it's happening on stage, and it's happening, you know, when we're not on stage.
Go into that a little more, both of you, Jim and JP. Talk about the cast.
well,
I want to know.
Let me just finish.
Oh, please go.
Go ahead.
Answering
Yeah,
that
sorry.
first question about how I found this character. It had as much as anything to do with Jim, and you know, the way Jim directs, the way Jim guides, the way Jim trusts. And so, you know, we found, I think all of us as actors found that depth, and it's a particular approach to acting that I've developed over the years. And finding, I teach a class called the you know, character development, and you know, finding the three-dimensional characters we talked about. But so but you were just asking about what was the next question?
Just the cast. I want to hear about the cast. Let's highlight some of the some of the folks in there. Now, as you get there, let's kick off with Artie. He really stood out to me as somebody to really watch in the future. Who is he and how old is he?
He's in 8th grade. Both the boys are in 8th
wow.
grade. And I got to tell you, there's certain things, and I talked to Les about. I think I talked to Les about this, or somebody who's a musician. That this happens sometimes. You see it where someone has an instincts for something. You know what I mean? And this young boy has instincts for the stage. He just does. That he does things that I go, how did you know how to do it?
Yeah.
It's just instinctual. I mean, he has to be guided too about turning your back or move inside instead of outside and that kind of thing. But his instincts are just amazing to watch.
Yeah, and who is
this
he?
is his first play, right?
His name is
Artie?
Asa Donahue, and he's in 8th grade.
That's his first play, right? This one?
Second play.
Second
Yeah.
play. Okay, second play.
Yeah.
And he knows every character's lines. I mean, literally. we call him Little Dictator.
And
I was doing a scene with him in rehearsal one time. He's sitting on the couch, and I look over, and I can see him mouthing my lines. But he's terrific. Both these kids,
he's still amenable to taking direction.
Absolutely.
He hits the beats, because there's a beat.
There's something going on.
He's got
Absolutely.
he's got a real comic timing.
Absolutely.
Beat to what's going on. He knows, okay, now's my time.
Yeah.
And you could see him do that.
Yeah.
And you can see musicians do that, or listen to musicians do that. And I'm
Absolutely.
like, that's really good.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's really cool. And this is his second play. So.
And I've taken him aside a number of times and said, listen, I could see, I've been doing this my whole life. I always say to him, I'm on my way stepping out and you're stepping in, and I could see it.
Yeah.
And if this is something you want to do, you can do it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
No.
You got to want it, buddy.
Yeah.
Both these kids,
your ears,
actually.
that's all.
Duncan is got great skills for a young man, too.
Yeah.
The
other boy.
Just
23
Artie's
plays,
character
that
really
kid?
stood out. He did really
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
The guy's playing Jay, 23 plays he's done already?
I don't understand.
Well, that's what
that.
it said.
He's
I
got to
was
be
like-
acting since he was
Yeah,
born.
Two.
how that happened, man?
Well, I think he's done almost all musicals up till now.
Yeah, this is his first real play.
yeah.
I call it.
And Grandma.
Grandma, I worked with her in Beauty Queen of Lenane by Martin McDonough, who is
That's
really
Walt's wife, right?
hitting the,
Okay, yeah.
the
Yeah.
screen
She was awesome.
right now. His
Terrific.
three post boards outside.
3 billboards.
He directed and wrote that. And he's
wow.
a terrific playwright. So we worked together in that play, and
She was
I saw her
dynamite.
right away as Grandma when I was.
My first exposure to Lou, her name's Louise, we call her Lou, was I was teaching an acting class in town. It's got to be at least 7 or 8 years ago now. And she showed up, and I don't think she'd ever done any work prior to this, and she kind of fell in love with it. And you could see she was doing some beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
She's great. We're lucky enough to have Robin in this play, Robin Allen, who's our executive director, but also
And she's playing.
she's playing Aunt Bella.
Bella,
And Aunt
okay, she
Bella,
was right here
my
earlier.
sister, Uncle Louie's sister, Louise's grandma's daughter. She's highly, highly experienced, very talented, and we're lucky to have her in the show.
Yep.
And she's brought these nuances to this
Yes.
character. Aunt Bella isn't. I guess one of the phrases would be she's not playing with a full deck, or she's not all there.
And she did
Closed
it
for
beautifully.
repairs.
Yeah.
She would be what they call bipolar nowadays.
Yeah, maybe.
Give her some kind
Now,
of diagnosis.
One of the beauties of productions here at Prescott Center for the Arts, PCA-az.net,
Yep.
is the layout of the theater. It's a historical building, an old church, if I'm not
Correct.
mistaken.
Catholic Church.
Now, I had the luxury on Monday night of sitting right here in the front row, and literally, 5 feet, 4.5 feet
Right.
from the stage, to watch Lou and, Robin, especially towards the end in that last act, right here, feet in front of you, and watching those expressions and watching the emotion they're putting into it. Now, not to say there's not a bad seat, well, unless you're behind the pole, but there's really
Poles.
not. There's
pretty intimate
it's a
theater,
very intimate theater. It's set up nicely, but in these front rows, to be able to watch that emotion that they were really putting into their roles
In the moment.
it was incredible.
Yeah.
It was so captivating
Hey,
to
we
just
forgot
watch.
one person. Who's the guy that's playing the dad?
Well, 2 people actually.
That's Ron Bowen, whose name is.
Yeah, Ron.
Yeah, he was really good too.
Yeah.
Playing my brother, doing great work, and then
I love the way you guys have his letter reading off to the side there.
Yeah,
Nice
What do you-
choice
in the
for
script,
Jim, yeah.
in the script, it's just a voiceover.
What do
And
you-
as a director, I don't want voiceovers.
what would you
know?
call? What do you call that? That like a shot. I don't know what you would call it, where he's off to the side in the spotlight.
Yeah,
Isolation.
I don't know.
Yeah, he just sets up. He's on the road.
Yeah, very nice. With a little train going in
Yeah.
the back.
Yeah, you
That's
hear the
right.
train. Yeah,
Go ahead. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
and then-
JP.
There's one more person.
The other actress is Nancy.
Durham.
Yeah, Nancy Durham, who works for the theater. She actually works in the administrative part of the theater.
Yes.
And she's just delightful.
Yeah.
First time on stage in 36
Now,
years.
I don't know her. I know her son Torrance pretty well.
Torrance
He's
is
done
cool,
some
yeah.
work. That's who you met the other night, Torrance, the other photographer
other
kid.
photographer,
yeah.
yeah.
But she was Gert.
Destroy his lens.
Hey,
He said, "There's two other photographers here. I think I'll just take pictures of my mom."
Yeah, she's doing just a remarkable job. It's a
Yeah.
pretty complex character in herself.
Yes.
She's got this interesting sort of breathing and talking problem,
Yeah.
which gives it a lot of humor, but a lot of depth as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, folks can find out about the play pca-az.net.
Correct.
And you're running.
We
what?
open tomorrow night.
This will
and we
go up
run
tonight.
for 2 weeks.
Okay.
There'll be matinee on Sunday, and one Saturday matinee.
Nice.
So we have a good little run. I wish it was longer, but they run for 2 weeks. If it's a musical, they run for 3 weeks here.
And cost at the door for
Cost at the door is $21, I believe, and
Is it?
there's
Yeah.
something called a processing fee, which I'm on the production committee, which we talk about trying to explain to people. It's a ticket thing,
Yeah.
where they take care of all of the machinations that happen with the tickets.
Yeah.
That's only if you want to pay.
No,
ahead of
it's
time?
no matter
That's
what.
at the door too.
Even if you're paying at the door, yeah, you have to pay into that.
Sounds like
Which
Ticketmaster.
I don't want to make a negative thing about it, but it's worth it to come in a digital world to watch live theater.
I was going to
you
say,
know.
at 20 something bucks,
Yeah,
you're coming in, you're seeing local talent, extremely high level
Yeah.
local talent.
Months of rehearsal.
You're supporting local artists, which
Correct.
is huge.
Yeah.
And it's going to cost you that to go to a movie and get a soda.
Yeah.
Don't even think about the popcorn. And you're not,
That's going to cost the soda.
yeah.
Right.
So-
Do you guys have candy and soda sales here? Like
they
over
have
the
water,
BarkBox?
fresh water,
Okay, very
and
good, yeah.
stuff like that.
and
bottles
you're
of water.
and you're walking distance from a great after show refreshments right down at
Correct,
Courthouse
yeah.
Square.
Yeah.
What's
As we used to say in New York, a knife's throw away.
what's up next for you, Jim? What projects do you have in the hopper?
Well, I'm hoping to maybe. I'm a little disappointed because my partner here can't do it, but there's a Shakespeare coming up at the end of the season called Comedy of Errors, and I'm thinking of auditioning to be in that as an actor.
Yeah,
Next, yeah.
remarkable director, too. She's terrific.
Melanie.
Yep.
JP, what's on schedule for you? You got
I
a couple
have.
projects in the
I've
works.
been cast in a musical. Believe it or not, talking about musicals called Big River, directed by Kathy Hahn, and I've got a lovely role in that. Now, the last time that I did anything remotely resembling a musical, the not legitimate plays, as my friend Jim thinks, was in high school, and I played Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof.
Beautiful.
So it's a little nerve-wracking, but I think I'm in good hands. And
So who are you going to be?
I'm going to be a character called the King. There are a couple of
you're the king.
shysters that show up in Act 2. Yeah.
Now, I'm not familiar with the production, but you were giving me a little bit about it, and I'm anxious to see it. Tell us what the
It's
gist of it is.
the Mark Twain story about
Yeah.
Huck Finn and Jim the slave and about their journey. And it's quite beautiful. I'm pretty excited about this opportunity.
And your friend Paul's doing music for it?
Paul is like his trying.
Paul who?
Paul Epic has reached out to me to be part of the band. We'll see.
Yeah.
I got to see how much of a
Yeah.
commitment it is.
On that note, the music is by Roger Miller.
Yeah, I was going
Yeah.
to go there.
Which
That
is
I was
amazing.
like,
Beautiful stuff.
I was like, I had no idea that he. Why has this not been made into a movie? That's like my big.
Yeah.
When will production start on this?
To be honest with you, I don't know off the top of my head.
coming
We start
soon.
rehearsal in late February. And then there are going to be several weeks of rehearsal and probably in this early spring or late winter
Next to the last play.
So
Yeah.
keep checking PCA.
Dates
Yeah.
in Phoenix
for
too.
Big River. Actually, yeah, we're going to do we've somehow created a relationship with a
nice.
company down there. We're going to take it on the road a little bit.
Fantastic. So check PCA-az.net
Yes,
for
sir.
all the information on there. And just on a side note, all the stuff we've talked about, these three guys here, the two involved in PCA, and of course Les, not a serial killer Lyman, and about their history, the talent they're bringing to this production, and of course Neil Simon's Lost in Yonkers. Aside from all of that, come get your tickets just so you can see JP in boxer shorts for a good
Oh,
chunk of the
yeah.
play.
Yeah, with the garters.
I love a man in garter belts.
He's got the garters on, man.
Well, gentlemen, thank you all three of you so much for taking time out.
Matt,
I
good
think
to
that
see you
brings
as
us-
always,
Good to
my
see you
friend.
again.
Thank
Good to
you.
see you.
Good to see you, Les.
We're all shaking
Love you, my
check
friend.
check the archives at milehighshow.com for all of our past episodes. Of course, a lot of mic time with Les, local musicians, local artists. Frank, and I'm going to butcher it, is it Malley?
Frank Malley.
Malley.
Frank Malley
Yeah.
from Fiddler on the Roof a couple months back. I had a great talk with him right here in this
He'll
very
be
front
playing
row.
my cohort in crime in Big River.
Oh,
He's
nice.
playing the Duke. So
Check the archives, go on there, and above all, and you guys can all attest to this, the biggest thing is find out where local artists are plying their trade, whether it be in front of a microphone with an instrument or with ink and paint and canvas,
Yeah.
or with the instrument of their voices and their expressions on stage, and go out and support some local
Right
artists.
on. Find what you like. You don't have to like everything or everybody, but there's somebody out there that's, I'll guarantee, there's somebody out there doing something that you want to see, hear, like touch, eat, listen to. Something is out there, and we do it here. And every dollar you spend here stays here.
Yeah.
yeah, and Matt, I gotta thank you for what you're doing, man.
Absolutely.
Supporting the arts. You keep up the good work, brother.
And if you have any listeners out there, if you have a project or an artist or an event or something that you want to get the word out, info@milehighshow.com. Send me an email, and we'll travel on over with my trusty microphones and start chatting. And
It doesn't work without people like you.
we'll even let you talk for a little bit. Thanks, guys. Thank you, guys.
Springtime